What if the animated blockbuster you loved had a bizarre cousin hiding in a bargain bin? In the shadows of Pixar and DreamWorks masterpieces lurk knockoff nightmares that defy belief. From Brazilian rats to kung fu pandas with zero charm, these ripoffs weren't just shameless. They were sold to kids worldwide. This countdown exposes 15 animated clones you won't believe they got away with. Number 15, Tappy Toes, 2011. When Happy Feet tapped its way into global hearts, it was only a matter of time before imitators came waddling in. Enter Tappy Toes, an obscure direct-to-DVD animation that attempted to copy everything from the dancing penguin concept to the heartwarming message, without a fraction of the talent. The plot follows a penguin named Pingo, who is born with big feet and a love for dancing. Sound familiar? It should. But Tappy Toes lacks any of the musical magic or visual finesse that made Happy Feet a classic. The animation is janky at best, with robotic character movement and vacant eyes that feel more eerie than endearing. The backgrounds are static and poorly textured, resembling early computer graphics demos. The dialogue is wooden, the voice acting unenthusiastic, and the jokes land with a thud. Worst of all, the dance numbers that are supposed to be the highlight are awkwardly animated sequences devoid of rhythm or emotion. It feels like a school project that accidentally got distributed internationally. Parents mistakenly bought this thinking it was connected to the Penguin hit, and many kids were left confused or disappointed. There's no originality and no charm, just a blatant cash-in attempt to ride the coattails of a far superior film. Even the title is a rip-off in spirit. Tappy Toes wasn't just a knockoff. It was a cold, calculated scam that aimed for confused shoppers during holiday sales and succeeded far more than it deserved to. Number 14, The Autobots, 2015. In the world of blatant animated theft, the Autobots stands as a rare case where the creators didn't just get called out, they got sued. This Chinese animated movie looks shockingly similar to Pixar's Cars, from the visual design of the talking vehicles down to the exact tire treads. But while Cars had heart humor and sleek production values, the Autobots was a mechanical disaster. The film follows a red race car named K1 who suspiciously resembles Lightning McQueen and even shares his smug personality and underdog storyline. The animation is eerily close in style, almost like someone copied Pixar frames and ran them through a discount rendering engine. The background design lacks depth and consistency, and the motion physics are so poorly handled that characters slide across the ground rather than drive. Everything feels lifeless. Disney's legal team took notice and launched a copyright infringement lawsuit in China. To the shock of many, the Chinese court ruled in Disney's favor and banned the Autobots from distribution. It became one of the few instances where a major animation studio legally struck down an overseas mockbuster. But not before DVDs had already flooded markets in Asia and Europe. What's most disturbing is how many kids around the world probably watched this and believed it was part of the Cars universe. It's not just a case of imitation, it's a cultural heist. The Autobots wasn't a tribute, it was a mechanical copycat operation that got busted in broad daylight. But even in defeat, it proved one thing: knockoffs can go global before the real studios even notice. Number 13, Jungle Emperor Leo, 1997 re-release. This one flips the script, because Jungle Emperor Leo isn't the ripoff. Many argue it was the victim. This Japanese animated film is based on Kimba the White Lion, created by Osamu Tezuka in the 60s. When Disney's The Lion King roared into theaters in 1994, eagle-eyed anime fans saw a familiar white lion with a red mane and a father lost to a cliff fall. The similarities were undeniable: a young lion prince, a wise baboon, a starry sky reunion with his father. Even visual compositions felt copied frame for frame, yet Disney denied any influence. Meanwhile, Jungle Emperor Leo, which predates The Lion King by decades, quietly re-emerged in the 90s, with a re-release to remind the world where the idea may have truly originated. The film itself is emotionally deep, tragic, and far more philosophical than its alleged imitator. It tackles colonialism, environmentalism, and sacrifice in ways that shocked those expecting a cutesy adventure. But Western audiences barely saw it, overshadowed and suppressed by Disney's dominance. What makes this entry bizarre is the role reversal. The animation world typically points fingers at low-budget clones, but in this case, It was the mighty juggernaut accused of borrowing too heavily from a beloved classic. Whether it was inspiration, coincidence, or imitation, one thing is certain. Jungle Emperor Leo deserves far more recognition. It's not a knockoff. It might just be the original blueprint Disney never credited. Number 12. Animal United, 2010. If Madagascar and Ice Age had a chaotic love child raised on recycled jokes and eco-preaching, it would be Animal United. This German-British animated film borrows so heavily from DreamWorks' talking animal formula that it feels like a remix of familiar characters with none of their charm. Released 2 years after Madagascar. Escape 2. Africa. This movie assembles a ragtag team of wild animals, including a meerkat who dreams of water, a depressed lion, and a rooster who's inexplicably French. The plot revolves around droughts caused by humans building a dam and the animals' journey to take back their water. It plays out like a checklist of Madagascar tropes, over-the-top animals clashing with civilization's slapstick comedy and forced life lessons. The animation is oddly inconsistent, with characters that move too fast or not at all, and textures that vary wildly from shot to shot. The voice cast in English includes some recognizable names, but their delivery is mismatched, and the jokes fall painfully flat. Scenes stretch on awkwardly, as if trying to pad runtime, and the tone swings wildly from goofy pratfalls to climate change monologues. It wants to entertain and educate, but does neither effectively. What makes Animal United a true knockoff is how deliberately it mimics the Madagascar ensemble approach and animation style, hoping to draw in unsuspecting parents with talking animals and jungle backdrops. But this safari trip lacks direction and emotional payoff. Instead, it's a dry trek through imitation territory, where originality went extinct. Number 11. Donkey Zote, 2007. Imagine Shrek retold from the point of view of Donkey, but with none of the charm and 10 times the confusion. That's Don Quixote, a Spanish animated feature that tries to mash up Cervantes' Don Quixote with DreamWorks-style buddy comedy. Released just a few years after Shrek 2, this film is about a fast-talking donkey named Ruccio, who claims he was the real brains behind Don Quixote's legend. Ruccio is clearly modeled after Eddie Murphy's donkey in both voice and attitude. He breaks the fourth wall, cracks jokes constantly, and gets into chaotic situations that never quite land. The plot is bizarrely overcomplicated, with subplots involving stolen swords, dancing horses, and identity theft, all while trying to follow the original Don Quixote arc. The animation is plasticky, with inconsistent character rigs and jerky motion. Backgrounds look rushed, and there's a strange obsession with spinning camera shots that make some scenes dizzying. The English dub is poorly synced, with jokes that don't translate, and musical numbers that appear and vanish without warning. It's not just that Don Quixote borrowed DreamWorks' sidekick formula. It outright steals the tone, visual style, and comic rhythm of Shrek, but fails to build anything memorable. Kids expecting a funny donkey adventure got a confusing literary remix with CGI that looked 10 years behind. Don Quixote didn't honor Cervantes. It misquoted DreamWorks in a language no one asked for, and somehow it got a theatrical release. Number 10. Plan B, 2007. Just when audiences were buzzing over Jerry Seinfeld's B-movie, a bizarre little insect called Plan B landed on shelves, and no one was laughing. This suspiciously titled knockoff arrived the same year as DreamWorks' blockbuster and attempted to imitate its premise almost word for word: a talking bee, a forbidden relationship with a human woman, and a fight against the injustice of honey theft. The only thing missing was any trace of wit, charm, or animation quality. Plan B follows the adventures of a bee named Buzz, who discovers humans are exploiting the hive's honey supply. The visual design is crude, with characters moving like poorly rigged 3D models from a forgotten software tutorial. The voice acting is flat and robotic, with dialogue that feels like it was translated through several languages and recorded in a closet. The plot is a chaotic blur of courtroom scenes, chase sequences, and nonsensical side characters that drift in and out without reason. What's even more deceptive is the marketing. The title alone feels like a trap for confused parents trying to remember the bee cartoon their kid asked for. Throw in a yellow box cover and a vaguely familiar bee on the front, and it's easy to see how it snuck into homes. Plan B wasn't a plan at all. It was a desperate imitation released with just enough surface similarity to leech off a superior product's success. But while B-Movie became a meme legend, Plan B quietly rotted in bargain bins, unloved, unwanted, and unwatchable. What's number 9? Carl 2, 2005. Before clones were cool and identity crises became sitcom staples, Carl 2, pronounced Carl Squared, snuck onto the airwaves with a premise eerily close to Pixar's The Incredibles and DreamWorks' Megamind, but wrapped in teen sitcom packaging. While not a movie, this Canadian animated series about a teenage boy and his government-made clone was marketed with superhero vibes and futuristic gadgetry that clearly borrowed from better-known animated hits. Carl's clone C2 causes chaos, impersonates him at school, and creates mix-ups that parallel superhero secret identity tropes. The animation is Flash style with stiff movement and minimal facial range. Character designs echo early 2000s aesthetics, but lack consistency. The action scenes are clunky and lack impact. More striking is how Carl 2 tried to emulate the slick gadgetry and clone-gone-rogue storytelling that was trending in bigger-budget animated features. It's filled with technology-themed plots that reflect Megamind's sci-fi humor and The Incredibles' suburban hero antics. Only here, the writing is juvenile and often resorts to repeated jokes and exaggerated catchphrases. While Carl 2 has a cult following, it was packaged with misleading promotional art that made it look like a new superhero flick. Confused viewers and parents frequently mistook it for a film tied to the 2000s animated boom. But once the DVD hit the player, it was clear. This clone didn't have the DNA of greatness. It had the fingerprints of a marketing team trying too hard to jump on someone else's animated success. Number 8. Life's a Jungle, Africa's Most Wanted, 2012. Madagascar brought high-octane comedy to stranded zoo animals with rich animation and sharp voice acting. But when Life's a Jungle, Africa's Most Wanted, crawled onto the scene, it looked like the dollar store version of a movie nobody ordered. From the subtitle that mirrors Madagascar, Escape 2. Africa to the Talking Animal cast this film is a shameless attempt to profit from confusion. The plot centers on a pampered dog named Pip, who's accidentally shipped to Africa and must find his way home with the help of misfit jungle animals. It tries to mimic Madagascar's City Pet in the Wild formula, but executes it with crayon-tier animation and dialogue that seems AI-generated. The visuals are crude, the colors washed out, and the character models resemble early prototype builds, sometimes with broken joints and lifeless stares. The jokes are forced and juvenile with gags involving animal droppings, dizzy lions, and screechy voices. Unlike Madagascar, which had layers of character depth and clever satire, Life's a Jungle relies on volume and chaos. It's a barrage of noise and movement with no emotional core or narrative rhythm. The most cynical part? Its title. Designed to be mistaken for a sequel or spin-off, the film tricked countless shoppers into thinking it was somehow tied to DreamWorks. But this knockoff didn't come close to the wild fun it tried to imitate. It was more like being stranded in a narrative wasteland, with no laughs in sight. Number 7. A Car's Life, 2006. When Pixar released Cars, it wasn't just a film, it was an empire. Toys, games, theme parks. Naturally, Ripoffs followed like exhaust fumes, and A Car's Life was the most shameless of them all. Released the same year as Cars, this low-budget disaster tried to cash in on the anthropomorphic vehicle craze. But without Pixar's polish or storytelling genius. The movie features Sparky, a red talking car who learns life lessons about bravery, growing up, and avoiding bad influences. It's basically Lightning McQueen with a personality transplant and a blurry render job. The animation looks like it was designed for a mid-90s computer demo. Characters have rubbery movements, glassy eyes, and expressionless faces. Backgrounds are flat and empty, with zero sense of scale or detail. The voice acting is grating with poorly mixed audio and dialogue that sounds like it was recorded on a cassette deck. The plot limps forward with awkward moralizing and random events stitched together like a patchwork tire. While Cars explored friendship and purpose, A Car's Life offers generic advice like, stay in school and "Don't trust strangers" with all the emotional depth of a road sign. What's even worse is how many sequels it spawned. A Cars Life 2 and 3 followed because it was cheap to produce and confusingly marketable. Kids everywhere were duped into thinking this had some link to the Pixar universe, but what they got was a road trip through animation hell. A Cars Life wasn't just a ripoff, it was a mechanical insult. Number 6, Kiara the Brave, 2011. The title alone is a trap. Kiara the Brave sounds eerily close to Pixar's Brave, but the two films share no characters, no plots, and no production houses. Released in India under the title Super K, this film was later repackaged and renamed to fool Western audiences during the promotional surge for Brave in 2012. And it worked. The story follows a boy named Super K in a fantasy kingdom filled with talking animals, evil demons, and magical powers. So how does this connect to Pixar's tale of Merida and her Scottish rebellion? It doesn't. The connection is entirely fabricated through the deceptive title change and misleading cover art showing a red-haired warrior princess who doesn't even appear in the film. The animation is clunky with jagged frame rates and character models that seem pulled from a forgotten video game engine. The humor is scattershot, the story unfocused, and the music mismatched. Despite some moments of genuine cultural imagination, the final product feels rushed and disjointed. Parents bought this DVD thinking it was a prequel, a spin-off, or a related feature to Brave. Children expecting Merida's bow and bear transformations instead got a cosmic martial arts fairy tale with an entirely different tone. The betrayal was real. Kiara the Brave didn't just borrow attention, it hijacked it. By the time parents realized the bait and switch, it was too late. The popcorn was cold, the kids were confused, and Pixar was nowhere in sight. Number 5. The Little Panda Fighter, 2008. The title feels like a parody, and the movie plays exactly like one. The Little Panda Fighter is one of the most infamous examples of mockbuster cinema. Riding on the heels of Kung Fu Panda, this Brazilian-produced film from Video Brinquedo swaps martial arts elegance for disco moves and incoherent storytelling. Instead of Po, the lovable Kung Fu Panda, we get Pancada, a brooding bear who dreams of being a dancer in a world of underground boxing. Yes, boxing. The fighting is minimal, the pacing is glacial, and the animation is, to put it politely, barely functional. Characters slide instead of walk, blink at random, and often freeze mid-sentence. Backgrounds loop endlessly, and lighting effects are non-existent. Even more baffling is the mood. While Kung Fu Panda is full of vibrant action and heartfelt lessons, the Little Panda Fighter leans into depression, slow narration, and awkward life lessons about honesty and following dreams. It tries to be dramatic, but ends up feeling like an accidental experimental film with pandas. The voice acting is dubbed awkwardly, with long pauses, poor translation, and mismatched mouth movement. The editing is so clumsy that whole plot points disappear or reappear with no warning. And the climax? A dance-off. This isn't a tribute, it's not even a satire. The Little Panda Fighter is a cinematic accident fueled by opportunism. It took one of DreamWorks' most beloved franchises and turned it into a slow-moving fever dream that nobody asked for, and yet somehow it made it onto store shelves. Number 4. Little B, 2010. With B-movie already attracting memes and mockery, Little B dared to buzz lower. Released quietly with minimal fanfare, this obscure knockoff tried to clone the DreamWorks hit, complete with a talking bee protagonist, a quest for justice, and some truly cringe-worthy animation. But instead of satire and courtroom drama, it delivers moral confusion and some of the worst CGI ever pressed to disc. The plot follows an earnest bee named Barry. Yes, really. Who discovers that humans are stealing pollen and disrupting nature. He teams up with a group of forest animals to reclaim their environment. Sound familiar? That's because it is. Except every element feels like it was cobbled together from a rejected storyboard. The characters look like wax figures in motion. Eyes don't blink properly, wings flap out of sync, and the voice acting feels like a rushed afterthought. There's no emotional rhythm, no comic timing, just dialogue dumps and exposition. The backgrounds are repetitive and eerily silent, like someone forgot to mix in ambience. Even more confusing is its attempt to inject environmentalist themes without consistency. One scene has animals protesting pollution, And in the next, they're cracking jokes about fast food. The film doesn't know if it's preaching or parodying. In the end, it's neither. It's just uncomfortable. Little B wasn't just a cheap copy. It was a cinematic void. A film so lazy in execution and so blatant in mimicry that it's hard to believe it didn't get flagged. But in the world of direct-to-DVD knockoffs, confusion is a business model, and Little B made sure to fly under the radar, right into unsuspecting homes. Number 3. What's Up? Balloon to the Rescue, 2009. If you thought Up was heartwarming, just wait until you see its Brazilian doppelganger unravel into surreal chaos. What's Up? Balloon to the Rescue is a film so derivative, so badly animated, and so utterly incomprehensible that it feels like a glitch in the timeline. Released mere months after Up, this movie features, wait for it, an old man, a floating house, and a wild balloon adventure. But instead of Carl Fredricksen and a touching love story, we get Dr. Dolittle, not that one, and a flying contraption shaped like a castle powered by balloons. The character designs look like early PlayStation cutscenes with angular limbs and mouths that move on delay. Every scene is drenched in overly saturated colors that hurt to look at. Animations loop like broken GIFs, and at times characters freeze mid-air or walk through walls. There is no emotional anchor, no Ellie, no wilderness scout to tug heartstrings. Just shrill characters screaming exposition in rooms filled with silence. The dialogue sounds like it was dubbed during a fire drill. Sound effects repeat like a broken record. It's not just bad, it's wrong. The entire film feels like someone watched Up once during a fever dream, then tried to recreate it using free software and guesswork. And yet, it made its way into stores across the globe, often shelved right beside the real Up. What's Up isn't a movie, it's a marketing scheme disguised as a fever dream, and it got away with it. Number 2. Chopkick Panda, 2011. Some titles dare to be subtle. Chopkick Panda is not one of them. This is as blatant as it gets. A direct-to-DVD disaster that screams Kung Fu Panda without the artistry or the fun. Released just as DreamWorks' Kung Fu franchise was soaring, this cash grab centers on Zeebo, a bumbling overweight panda who is secretly destined to defeat evil through martial arts. Sound familiar? It should. But unlike Po, Zeebo lives in a world where everything looks like it was drawn in Microsoft Paint. The animation is stilted with backgrounds that don't match lighting and movement that resembles broken puppetry. Zeebo's eyes rarely align and his body shifts sizes between scenes. Dialogue is delivered with deadpan pacing as if the voice actors were reading from cue cards at gunpoint. The story hits all the same beats. Ancient scrolls, a clumsy hero, a threatening villain, but does so with none of the charm or timing. Fight scenes are slow-motion flails set to generic stock music, and jokes fall flatter than the 2D animation pretending to be 3D. What's even worse is how often Chopkick Panda was sold in bundles or misidentified as part of the real Kung Fu Panda franchise. Grandparents everywhere were fooled into buying it, and kids everywhere were punished by watching it. Chopkick Panda isn't just a ripoff. It's a monument to the mockbuster era, when quality didn't matter and confusion sold DVDs. It is cinematic plagiarism hiding behind a cartoon smile. Number 1. Ratatoing, 2007. The crown jewel of animated ripoffs is a tale of rodents in a kitchen. But this is no Pixar masterpiece. Ratatoing is what happens when you mix ratatouille with a blender and forget to plug it in. Released just before Ratatouille hit theaters, this Brazilian nightmare follows a rat named Marcel Toing who runs a secret restaurant in Rio, not Paris, but you would barely know the difference because the animation is too broken to show it. Marcel sneaks into human kitchens to steal ingredients and cook for elite rats. The concept mirrors Ratatouille in structure, daring rodent chefs' gourmet meals human interaction, but executed with all the grace of a crash test dummy ballet. Characters vibrate when they speak, backgrounds loop endlessly, camera angles shake like someone dropped the rendering computer mid-shot. The voice acting sounds like a high school AV club doing impersonations with a hangover. The plot crawls from scene to scene without rhythm, and the humor is a series of odd grunts, awkward silences, and food puns that defy translation. And yet Ratatoing made it into homes across the globe, often placed beside the real Pixar film by mistake or mischief. It wasn't just a parody. It was a bait and switch sold with glossy packaging and zero shame. Even the title dares you to misread it. Ratatoing is the most infamous example of how far mockbusters can go. It is the final boss of animation ripoffs, the film that makes you ask, how did they get away with this? These animated imposters fooled millions and exposed the bizarre world of cinematic mimicry. When quality studios dream up magic, someone always tries to ride the wave with half the effort. But now you know the truth behind the knockoffs. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the strangest corners of animation.